Welcome to the Modern Eco Village. We are building a community in the south of Spain for 500 households, a complete community focused on health, sustainability, and community interaction. Our goal is to create a green oasis where we can upgrade different aspects of our lives, get closer to nature while keeping the modern comfort and technology. So listen up.
This is a kind of a review a little bit after the gathering, right? So it's kind of like feedback about how the gathering went, and also it's a kind of a summary of some of the elements of the presentation that I made at the gathering, so other members are aware of what happened. So I think one of the interesting things was I think the gathering, the November gathering, was really good. I think it went really well. I think
everybody thought so.
Yeah, and I think the venue was really nice. It was well set up. I thought the schedule on the plot went well. Obviously, people went and they saw that we've actually built the foundation for the show house, and some of the steel frame had been delivered. We've had a few issues with that, but it's being assembled. And I think we also had quite a nice plot tour. So we'd actually cleared a lot of the plots, and we'd actually put markers down to explain what the plot was, what its name was, what was on this plot, i.e. a plus villa or a standard villa. And also we'd used a lot of little flags to be able to mark out all the plots. So I think that helped people to visualize a lot of where their houses might be in the future, because previously it's been really overgrown. It's been very difficult for people to see their view and all that sort of stuff. And I think now people are beginning to understand what they're getting. And I think even for me, I've been there as a view many times. It's only now that you're going, oh, that's a really nice plot, and wow, it's an incredible view, and it's nice land, and it's nicely terraced and all that sort of. So people.
If anything, it's harder to choose now because there's so many nice plots.
Well, that's true. Yeah, and I keep, like you, I keep changing my mind as well. I mean, we originally picked one at the top of the site purely because that's all you could get to at the time. So I don't know if that's where we're going to end up, but I know we're also now looking at phase one as well. So that's interesting.
I mean, we posted a lot of pictures of the foundation. Now the house foundation is done, and the first house is being built. So one thing is to look at a picture, and one thing being there. Like me personally, I had a shock. I don't know if you felt the same when you saw the foundation and saw how big the house actually is.
It is a big house, yeah, and also this may not be for everyone, but I think that because we're building the house off a raised slab and raised foundation, it's a lot more waterproof, it's a lot better insulated, but also it gives you the opportunity of actually building a basement as well. It doesn't take an awful lot to go down into the ground when the floor is already a meter off the floor, right? You just need to go down another 1.5 meters.
And the basement is, it's a place that doesn't count in the eyes of the city hall, right?
That's true. Yes.
So you can actually have a bigger house without being taxed for it, or without taking anything from your land.
Yes. Other than there will be obviously a bigger build charge associated with it, but other than that, yes.
It's like 1.5. That was the ratio.
It's roughly about 1.5 times the build area above ground, underground, because you're having to dig out the ground and put in obviously retaining walls and stuff like that, and waterproofing and all that sort of stuff. So, but one of the things I thought would be useful, and I did at the in the gathering, was a kind of a recap, because I realised coming into December now, this was roughly when I started working with you and Belinda a year ago. So it's kind of like my first anniversary. So it's very easy to forget how far we've come in a year. And I think,
know what? I just had a glimpse of that. I was looking through my old podcast, and I seen the absolute first podcast I done with you.
Yes.
And that was on our kitchen table.
Oh yeah, I remember it actually. Yes, I just come over to visit you guys. Yeah, but it's very easy to forget how far we've come. So I'm going to look at my notes as I'm going along, because I started with you actually from the UK in about December, and we were looking. I think at that point we were working on business plans and trying to work out feasibility studies and whether it would all work or not. And it's interesting to see that some of the kind of back of the envelope calculations we did all the way back then are still relatively valid. I mean, there's a lot of other things that we've put in now that we weren't aware of, like grant funding and sales margins and kind of finance costs and stuff like that. But a lot of the initial discussions around how much the houses would be and the building cost. But we're actually not that far off, which is kind of interesting to see. And we've all now got the experience of the show house, which is also helping us a lot to try and fine tune a lot of those.
I didn't understand it at the time, but obviously it comes from experience because you've been doing this before. And I remember Danny was having his own calculations, and they were widely different, but you came to the same conclusion.
Yes.
And now when the engineers and the experts came into the picture and they calculated again, it's still at the same price.
And that's one of the things I've noticed. I've worked with other guys in the UK, a friend of mine called James, and we used to do projects together, and he would actually do detailed breakdowns of, so much for a door frame, so much for a square metre of tiling, so much for a bathroom, or whatever it came out at. And I'd kind of just do it by 250 square metres at, £2,000 or £3,000 a square metre, and you'd come out with the same value. So it was kind of a quick and dirty or a very detailed, and it still comes out at the same amount. But I was just thinking that, so we started working together in December last year, and then I moved here with Giselle and Luca, and we moved in February, and since February we've kind of done an awful lot. I mean, we when we moved here, as you said, we were working from your kitchen table. We had no office, we had very few staff members, we had hardly any members. We hadn't secured the land. You'd found the land, obviously, and we were in discussions about trying to pay for it and stuff. We were trying to buy it with not a huge amount of capital. So we've come a long way in a year. The other thing I think also is interesting to remember is when we went up to the site initially, you couldn't even see the roundabout that when we arrived, that arrival roundabout was kind of almost hidden. The access road down whatever we call Pollution Alley or whatever we're calling it now with the cars was just crawling over and under trees and hedges and bushes and getting spiked with all sorts of stuff. Now you can walk down it and you can drive down it even, and it's a perfectly usable road. So it's amazing how far we've come in a year. So what else then? So I don't know if you want to superimpose, if you can do that afterwards. We had some before and after photographs of the different parts of the site. So the first one was
can I look at it?
Yeah. So,
that's the one, yeah.
Yeah. So we had some pictures of how much the different parts of the site had changed. So the first one was how different the pilot plot was compared to what it was a year ago. Mm. The second one that we were looking at was the communal areas, so the Masia. So originally when we looked at it from like Google Maps, you could hardly make out the Masia. Now it's quite plain and visible, and all the land has been cleared. And where we had
and it's terraced as well.
And it's terraced, and where we had the September gathering as well. So that was a beautiful kind of like location as well. And then the final one was a comparison of MU5 and MU6. And again, about a year ago, you couldn't make out any of the roads or any of the plots, and now the roads are clearly visible, and so are the plots.
Say, I didn't see it myself. I was looking at these plots. I made it out there, actually with Adrian. In the beginning, I made it out there. I had some special shoes and
you need long pants and like heavy clothes, right? Otherwise, you get.
It took forever to get down there, but we did, and I just couldn't see it. But now that it's all clear, it's unbelievable, I mean, not having that experience, from my side, I just couldn't imagine how MU6 is going to look like and how it's going to work with all these houses. But now it's so easy to see, it's so clear. Like you take one look and you can straight away see.
And it's interesting. So the people who had the vision, who kind of came in early and who've been reserving the plots now, have actually picked some really cracking plots now that they're cleared. I think they took a bit of a punt on kind of putting their money down and where their mouth was and kind of signing along the dotted line. But they've got some, MU4 and MU5. There's some beautiful views and some beautiful plots, and some are still available, obviously. So hopefully, anyone listening, if you're interested, come and reserve.
Yeah, I mean, Damien was doing that last time, right?
Yes.
It took him forever just to access that plot that he thought it was nice, and he took his time, and and now that it's clear, it's so easy to see. That's a beautiful plot.
Yeah.
But no one could see it before. He was inspired.
No, he was very tenacious in his wanting to see stuff. So if you now look a year later, a year ago we had hardly any memberships. We've now got over 65 memberships, probably 70 at this point. That represents over 143 people, so different families and stuff like that. We've moved offices now from your kitchen table to where we are at the moment, the Albia Commercial Centre.
And we extended 2 times more after.
Yeah, so now we've got not just one. This room we're in, it was our original office. We've got that, and we've now got 2 extra offices, he said. So we've now got, half of the downstairs of the whole commercial centre, which is kind of cool. Our office staff have grown from, just a couple of us to now 11. We've cleared probably about 40 or 50% of the site in the last year.
And all the roads are accessible, and you can drive on.
All the roads
the entire village.
Yeah, they're all accessible. We've repaired all the bits where there were water damage and stuff over the years. So that's great. We've invested probably about 150,000 in engineering stuff as well, so to try and get the infrastructure project ongoing. And we've started the show house, so the foundation is done. We're actually now working on some of the groundwork. So the plan is to try and get the shell of that building finished by our February gathering. So we want to be
28th, was it?
28th of February. So we want to be able to have that complete so that people can actually be outside on the terraces. The gardens hopefully will be all landscaped and ready to go, and people will be able to have the gathering on the terraces. And if the weather is cold, we're hoping also to be able to go inside. This pushing my luck a little bit here, but maybe even having some heating, some lighting and electricity and water and toilets and stuff like that, so that people would be able to at least see the size of the building inside, which I think would be kind of cool. So
sounds a little bit optimistic, but
well, okay,
it is doable.
That's a bit of a change
I'm
from
the
us.
optimist.
I know that's normally it's a change. I'm the pessimist and you're the optimist. But yeah, no, I was talking to Eric, who's one of the guys who's helping us from the constructor side, and he actually said he was hoping to have it finished in March. And I actually
the entire house,
the entire house completely finished, and I actually had it down for the end of April. Mm-hmm. So that's me being a bit conservative. Who knew? But yeah, so the goal would be by the end of February just to have the shell of the building finished and the outside groundworks expedited, so that people can actually get a feeling for what the plot might look like. So that would be kind of cool.
Well, the gardener is coming today, 6:00, so we start working on the outside.
Yes, I know that, and we've also got our architect Jose, and he's working to try and design the rest of the site. And he's promised me, and maybe he's looking at this podcast, he said he'd have it all ready for our Wednesday meeting in 2 days' time. So hopefully we'll have a site plan. Also, the other thing that we had over this year is we've also, by about June of this year, we had all of the plots signed for, which was a major milestone. Not only that, but we've actually physically bought 15% of the plots are completely owned and paid for by us. Another 35% of the plots are owned by us, and we've still got a couple of little payments to make. And then the other 50%, we've actually got signed purchase contracts, and we've had to negotiate a bunch of hurdles and stuff like that. But that's also ongoing as well.
Yeah, it's a complicated process, but we get there.
Yeah, it is. So a lot of other wins we've had during the year. I think one of them is we've been seeing that the mayor has been very supportive of everything we've done, and we really appreciate all his hard work. But that's been really helpful, and we'll talk about that a little bit as to how that helped us. We've got a really good top-notch team of architects, legal experts, and engineering professionals. And I think when you talk to people in the industry, everyone knows the team that we're working with. They know Gorrigues, they know Jazz Architectural Studio, they know Alpro engineers. So everyone is aware of the people that we're using it, and they're the best in the industry, which is great. So we've also, I think, which is kind of unusual, is we've developed a concept of modularity, which I think I'm really proud of. Everyone has kind of like come up with the concept.
It has been widely misunderstood, though.
Yeah, it's a difficult concept to understand, and we need to be very careful that it's not like a prefabricated kind of cheap, tacky thing. But this is using cutting edge assembly techniques in a factory to be able to make really accurately all the elements of a house, and actually put them together, bring them up to site and slot them together to make the whole building go up a lot more quickly. So we're seeing with the steel frame that when it was there, it only took a couple of hours to put up, a lot of it. And that was with the teething trouble of not having ever used it before and understanding how the process works. So I think once we get the hang of it and we get the factory set up and stuff, we can actually build a lot of that stuff very, very quickly and ship it up to site. So I think our timelines of 6 to 9 months for a phase look very, very doable at this point, which is good. It's good news.
Absolutely, yeah. And not only that, I mean, the factory was brilliant for several reasons. I mean, the flexibility, the modularity concept, the flexibility of the houses and design and all of that, and accuracy, like you say, the ease of, the assembly.
Yeah.
It means a lot.
And also it's more sustainable. I mean, that was being eco, so there's a lot less waste. A lot less labour is required to put it together in a factory rather than wandering around on site looking for bits and pieces and trying to bolt things together. So it's much easier to make in a controlled environment.
Another thing that we haven't talked about before, and I mean only internally, and this is not something people should count on, but after the entire village is built, if somebody wants a MEV house, they could probably get one because of the factory that we can.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I mean, or MEV 2.0,
exactly.
the next one. Yes, we can keep going as long as we have the energy and willpower to keep doing that. Yes. The other thing also it's also easy to forget about is over this year we've designed all the different house types. So we've got the plans for the standard villa, the plus villa, the 2-floor villa, all the different modules, the common areas, the schools, all of that stuff has all been designed, not completely from a technical perspective, but certainly enough to be able to get pricing and stuff on as well. So that's very important. And then the other element, which is also very important, which is, to be honest, still a work in progress, is the infrastructure or urbanization part of the project. People forget how big an amount of work that is. So we have to kind of build a water treatment plant. We have to build a reservoir. We have to build all the road. We have a lot of the foundations of the road infrastructure, but a lot of drainage still has to go in, and a lot of the surfacing of the roads has to go in. We've got to put in a lot of the street lights and all that sort of stuff, and the understand the concepts behind flooding and sustainable urban drainage, so we don't have any issues that you see in the likes of Benidorm and places like that when Alicante and Valencia, when you get flash floods. So we're designing a system that won't happen. So, but that's a lot of work as well, and that's the one element that we start working on in. Starting this Friday actually, we have our first meeting, so we're hoping to have a plan as to how quickly that can be done in probably January or February of next year.
Yeah, and that's gonna influence most likely the timeline of the first people moving in.
Yeah, it is, and at the moment our kind of gut feel is that phase 1 will be finished in around about Q2 of next year, and so what we really need, as you said, is that in order for people to move in, the urbanization infrastructure project needs to be finished around about that time and approved before people can move in.
People need to understand that it's not the houses, that the houses can be built finished next year, no problem. But in order to get approval to live in that house, the infrastructure project needs to be done, and that's a huge project.
It is a huge project, and if that isn't plannable in the time frame of Q2 2027, then one of our options is actually to combine phases 1 and 2 and build. So phase 1 is around about 20 houses, phase 2 is around about 20 houses, but there's no reason why we can't build 40 houses at phase 1 and 2 together. And if that finishes around the same time as the infrastructure project, then that's another fallback position, which means that it doesn't really impact the timelines of anyone other than the people who are in phase 1.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to delay the entire project, even though the first phase may be a little bit delayed. We don't want to delay the entire project.
No, and that's the great thing about it. So you got your little dog back. That's the one thing that's really important, is that overall the project is running pretty well to plan. We've had hiccups, like the first part of the project has been delayed a little bit in terms of the paperwork, but we are doing everything we can to try and keep the actual build part of the project back on track and keep it back on track. So I think if you're looking at what things have delayed the project, the single biggest issue and you mentioned this earlier, was the complexity of the land deal. it's been very difficult to kind of concisely explain to people without people thinking we're trying to lie to them or not tell them the whole truth. But the project has been hugely complicated. I mean, the land was owned by, at least 3 different parties, a bank and 2 groups of people who all had different agendas and different requirements and stuff like that. So it made it very difficult to negotiate deals. And we've been through the process many times, but it's getting to a satisfactory conclusion at this point, which is really good. But it's been a huge amount of up and down. Yeah, success. Oh no.
Yeah, not to mention the different requirements that the Spanish government has, and the laws regarding developments. You can only do that if the land is registered at the notary, or if the nota simples are registered in the right name and all that. Yes. So it's not only about buying the land, but also registering the land, and that can be quite a difficult and lengthy process in itself.
Yes, and that's the whole crux of the issue we have at the moment. So one of the key steps that we have to do on the route to getting planning approval is to become what they call the developing agent. And to do that, the previous developing agent, which went bankrupt in 2007, 2008, was still legally connected to the site. So our first step on that bureaucratic process was to remove the previous development agent, which we managed to do in September. We then had to officially apply to become the new developing agent, which we did in October, and we're hoping end of October, and we're hoping that approval will be coming through hopefully before Christmas. And so that will be a huge milestone. And one of the major advantages of the mayor's support is he said he would give us a piece of paper to say that we are then the developing agent or the candidate that's been approved for bank purposes. So we can give that to banks and we can start discussing development funding with them, which will be a huge milestone for us as well. And the developing agent status, or agente administrador, is really a key step to allow us to submit planning and to start drafting purchase contracts with people. So it's a huge big process, and it's so important that we get that status. We're looking at the moment of that status being approved in somewhere June of next year, and then hopefully after that we can submit planning, and once we submit planning we can get approval and we can start building. And so the build and approval time would be at the back end of next year.
Well, that doesn't mean we're not building anything until then. We can still build in the factory.
Yes, true. And so one of the next steps that we're trying to do is, okay, given that we have some hard and fast dates that we can't really change that much, they're not going to be any earlier than that, and they may be a little bit later, but pretty well those dates. We can actually speed up the timelines we can do things like we can do all the moving the land around, clearing the land, doing all the groundworks ahead of time so that everything is ready to go. We also were quite innovative we've actually got planning approval for the foundations and also the show house, and we split that into 2 parts to try and maintain those timelines. So we got planning approval for the foundations on the 23rd of October, and on the 24th of October we were building the foundations, and about 2 weeks later we actually had the foundations in place. So we're moving very, very quickly.
On the day, literally.
Literally on the day, yeah. And so what else then? And then what else have we got? I was talking about the land. Once we had the land agreed, it was owned by 3 groups of people. But there are multiple steps in that process as well. So as you mentioned, you have to first of all agree a contract with the 2 parties. And I don't know if you remember when one of the groups was Sarab Bank, which was a kind of a bad bank, which kind of holds kind of distressed assets. But they were so difficult when they wanted to know everything about all our transactions, our bank statements.
I don't know if you remember, it was almost impossible to get in touch with them.
Yes, we had to find who to get through with multiple different contacts to find out, how we actually found out about the land. We knew it was owned by Sarab, but we didn't know. And Sarab is a combination of lots of different bits, right? So we had to find who to contact. We then had to comply with all the know your customer requirements, which involved.
That was insane.
That was huge. I mean, we had to print out every single transaction from when our company was formed and explain what every single transaction was. They even wanted to go back and then see where the money came from for all the deposits we got from people, and they wanted those people to confirm where they got the money from. It was insane. We then also had to deal with, that was one element. The other elements, when there are two groups of people who weren't seeing eye to eye, and they were fighting over who got what, and we had to, it's almost like a kid's squabble, had to pull people apart and say, look, we had to sort stuff out. But again, that's worked quite well, and we negotiated some cracking deals, because at the time we weren't that flush with cash, and so we had to agree kind of stage payments and stuff. So we bought the land at a very good price, and also using kind of like unusual techniques to actually purchase the land. So that was a huge success.
It's incredible that he went through, actually.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah. So as I said, we had, once we'd done all that, we actually had 100% of the land signed for with private contracts. But as you mentioned, is that until we actually sign at the notary, it's not officially registered as being owned by us. And so we've signed now 50% is actually owned by us, and the other 50% we've signed purchase contracts.
Well, technically it's 69%. Yeah.
Well, technically it's 69. So that's also an interesting kind of like statistic, because in order to apply for the developing agent status, we had to have signed at the notary for 60% of the land, and we officially, according to our calculations, had 50%. So we were just a little bit short. And what our legal advisors did, which I think was kind of innovative, is they said, okay, well, you have to have 60% of the developable land. So they went through...
Not the rustic
green
area.
Yeah, they went through the whole plot, and they said, okay, well, let's take away all the rustic areas and all the green areas and stuff like that. Let's take away all the roads that aren't being developed. And they actually calculate how much of the actual development plots we had. And lo and behold, we had 69%, as you said. So that allowed us, that held us up for a while. But once we understood that you could be a bit sort of clever about how you calculated the amount of land that you actually owned, it allowed us to submit the planning approval. So that was, the agente administrador submission. So that happened in October. Not surprisingly, then, obviously, the land acquisition and the ownership of the land is a prerequisite for virtually everything else we do, because until you own the land, you can't submit the paperwork, and until you have submitted the developing agent paperwork, you can't submit the planning permission, you can't start tendering for companies to do the infrastructure projects, you can't officially get bank avals, you can't officially start signing purchase contracts. So one of the things we've had to do, and this also is probably not that clear for people who are new to the project, is we have 3 different levels of when you're buying a house. So I think it's good to point out that the first step obviously is becoming a member. So once you sign to become a member, that gives you the right to buy a plot on the site, but it also allows you to lock in the price of whatever the house is at that time. And that's really important, because as house prices go up and appreciate, it's very interesting to lock in your purchase price as quickly as possible. So that's a really good reason for people to kind of try and expedite their membership purchases. But once you've done that, the next step is actually reserving a plot. And because we don't have all the paperwork in place, we have to do that via a reservation process. So that is, you reserve the plot that you want, you tell us the type of house that you want on that plot, and you can tell us kind of like some of the features that you want, so whether you want a swimming pool and a basement and all that sort of stuff, and then we sign a contract and we agree to build that house at that price, plus or minus a little bit, because a lot of things we don't yet know, things like the groundworks or where you want the house positioned on the site. So if you want it dug into the mountain, obviously that's going to be more expensive than if you want it stuck on top of your plot or something like that. If you want a basement, obviously that's a lot more groundworks. So we have to understand some of those things. So between the reservation agreement, which we sign, and the purchase agreement, we will be working with everyone to try and understand what all their options are. So what tiles do they want, what bathrooms and kitchens and stuff. And as soon as we get the right paperwork in place, we can then draft all the purchase contracts, and people can review them, and then they can sign the purchase contract, and we can actually start building houses. And that will coincide with the planning approval and the development agent approval as well. So that's probably about June next year. So yeah, a lot of work ahead of us.
Coming ahead.
Yeah, I know, and I think one of the things that we're all feeling here in the office is it's been a very hectic year, everyone has really been working very, very hard, and everyone is really, really tired. So, but to be fair to us, I think one of the nice things we're doing is we've actually given everyone in the office 3 weeks off over Christmas. So the goal is to try and relax and recharge our batteries, and then come back in the new year ready to kind of get going again. So I think that's kind of cool. I don't know about you, but I'm definitely looking forward to a bit of a rest.
Me too. Me too.
Right. What else?
I think we covered most of it.
I think that's probably most of it, actually. Yes.
Yeah.
So I think some of the other things that we've also been struggling a little bit with is the steel frame structure. That's another element that we've had problems with. So we're working with quite a large, renowned company who's used to making steel frame, but they've just setting up a new factory, and they're kind of moving into a kind of like a second generation of...
Well, in their defense, it's all new technology, and it's a brand new factory with new software and all that. So
Yes.
it took a bit longer for them to set it up and make it work the way it should. And I mean, you actually said it from the beginning. I don't think the guys are going to deliver when they say they will.
Yeah.
And
I
didn't see it at the time, but it turned out to be true, just like everything else.
Yeah, and so
you tend to predict.
Well, no, but it's interesting actually, because we have I have a meeting with them on Friday, and we're kind of trying to go through
They're actually going to Barcelona.
I'm driving all the way up to Barcelona just to understand exactly how the factory is going, what their teething troubles are, but more importantly also then to discuss. It's not to try and kind of penalise people; it's to try and work with them to understand, what we can do to try and make this process more usable for us, particularly not so much for the show house, because that's coming. We've got most of it delivered already, and the rest will be delivered next week, hopefully. And so we can start assembling that. But the most important thing is to start looking at phase 1 deliveries, because the plan is, even though we might only get planning approval in sort of like late 2026, as you said, we can actually have a lot of that stuff ordered ahead of time and have it built and ready in the factory, ready to go. So that's one of the kind of the key elements that we can do to try and make the whole build process much quicker. So the idea would be we could have all the walls ready to go, and as soon as we get planning approval, we build the foundations. Once the foundations are done, we can literally start assembling the houses within a couple of weeks.
Well, just so people understand who these people are, we signed with them because we went there a few months ago. Yes, Phoebe. Just 1 second.
Okay. That's going to be a little bit of an edit then, is it?
No, I need to edit this anyway. That's why I didn't do
Okay.
it. Yeah. So this is a big factory. We've been there, and we chose this factory because all the other factories we've seen from before seems to be somebody's operation out of an oversized garage.
Yes.
As opposed to these guys that have a proper factory.
They've got a huge facility, and I think genuinely that they are trying their best, and they're trying to maintain their timelines. What I don't understand is exactly, they haven't completely told us the whole truth about what has happened, and that's one of my goals, is to find out exactly what has happened on Friday. But again, not to penalise them, but just to understand what the issues are. I'm thinking that they've just bitten off more than they could chew, and they've probably agreed to start the factory up in October. They didn't start it in October, as you said. They started a bit late. They probably promised 5 or 6 customers all their steel frames in early November, like us, and everyone's shouting at them, and they're doing probably the best they can. So yeah, I'm hoping that they get back on track. But really importantly is, in the back end of next year, we're going to need 1 steel frame a week, rising to maybe, once we start doing the townhouses, it's potentially 20 steel frames a week. So making sure they have the capacity to be able to support that is one of the objectives.
I think they will, as soon as everything is set up, and the new factory is set up, and they master the technology and the software, and the production line is probably a different process and all that. So as soon as they have everything in place, I think it's going to go very fast. I mean, they are one of the largest in Europe, steel frame manufacturers, and I don't see why this is not going to be a reliable operation. But just in the beginning of everything, there's always issues, and that's why you're going up there to identify what those issues are and what a real timeline is.
And that was also one of the beauties about the show house. It gives us an opportunity to do what they're doing. So that they've used us to build the first steel frame. We're using, obviously, our show house to build the first test bed for finding out how everything works and what things don't work.
How much it costs.
And how much it costs. Yeah, absolutely. And how long it takes and stuff. And also the technologies that we can include and won't be able to include, or maybe at extra cost or whatever. So understanding all of that will really help to de-risk the project and make sure that the phase one runs smoothly. And I even now, only kind of, a third of the way through the show house, I feel a lot more confident looking at how quickly the foundation went up, how quickly the steel frame is going up to say, it's looking actually quite good.
Yeah, the prices and everything, they seem to match. Like everything that was just on paper before now is becoming a reality, and it's nice to compare the two and see that we're still on budget, we're still on time and all of that.
Yes. One of our plans then for next year, as I kind of mentioned, is that we want to get the envelope of the show house finished for February, and the goal then is to have the next gathering the end of 28th of February on that site. So I think that will be really cool for people can come and see actually that everything in process and everything in place, the gardens and stuff all done as well. So that will be.
Yeah, we'll invite absolutely everyone interested in our project, and there's tens of thousands of people interested in our project. We're going to invite them all to come and take a look at new show house and participate in the gathering. I mean, yeah,
that should be our big gathering. Okay.
Well, we should totally. I mean, we recommend that people become members way before that, early December if possible, because our prices are going up in December. It's not decided exactly when, but we estimate right around before Christmas or around Christmas time, prices will most likely go up with roughly 5%. So when people become members, they lock in their house prices. So that's why it's important to become a member from before. It helps us a lot to know who our community is and which houses we can build and what we can rely on. And for the banks, of course, very important to know that we have our customers and the project is safe. So it helps everyone. This 10K I keep on mentioning, but people forget. It's fully refundable anytime. So people are not losing anything. And when the house purchasing contract comes, that 10K are being reduced deducted from the house price. So nobody loses here. It's just a very nice way to secure the project and for the people also to secure the spot in the MEV, and a very good deal.
Yeah, and I think also it's important to note that this is a huge project, and it's bigger than any one person can afford to invest. So we have a lot of investors, but it's bigger than any one investor. So everyone making a contribution towards that kind of like upfront cost for designing the site, all the engineering works, all the land clearance, all the plot clearance, all that sort of stuff. That really helps also us to make sure we keep the project moving forward, because previously the one thing that we could speed up on if we had the money would be, we could push the project faster if we had more funding. But we've been doing it very economically because we're trying not to waste too much money on external funding. And I think one of the nice things that we've done so far is that all of the funding to date has come from our members, and they're the ones who are reaping the benefits of the interest that we're paying. So it's a kind of a closed economy, a circular economy, in that they're helping us, we're helping them. So that's kind of cool as well.
It is, absolutely. Well, thanks for today, Stephen. I think we went through everything, and next time we can come with different topics and more detailed inside information about different aspects of either community or housing, the project in general. So until then, let's
keep pushing forward.
Let's keep pushing forward. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.